Thank you. So good evening and welcome to the first set of virtual community meetings on the Massachusetts Clean Heat Standard. Just so you know, we held another meeting this morning with the same exact presentation. So if you were here this morning, we will be going through it again. My name is Christine Kirby. I am the Assistant Commissioner of MassDEP's Bureau of Air and Waste. Also here tonight from MassDEP is Will Space, Emily Lamb, and Josh Cook, all of Bureau of Air and Waste Climate Strategies Group. First, we'll hear from Emily on the meeting logistics. Emily?
Yes, so as Christine mentioned, this meeting is being recorded and we have all participants muted to start with, and to minimize background noise, we ask that you please stay muted unless you're speaking. And we ask you to enter your full name and affiliation if it's relevant. You can do that in the participants panel. You click on the participants icon and then hover over your name. There's an option to select rename and you can put your name in there. Next slide, Josh. So there will be opportunities for clarifying questions throughout the presentation and then more substantive questions and comments at the end. So in order to ask a question or provide a comment, you can raise your hand. You also do this through the participants panel by selecting the raise hand option in the bottom right. And you'll see that your hand is raised with the blue icon next to your name. When it's your turn, we'll notify you by chat and announce your name and then ask you to unmute yourself. You could also submit questions and comments in the chat if you don't want to speak. And I'll turn it back to Christine to talk about the agenda.
Thank you, Emily, excuse me. So here's today's agenda. We heard first from Emily on the meeting logistics and background. I do want to note that this slide deck is available on MassDEP's website, along with other information and background material, but we will put the link to the presentation in the chat for your reference and clicking on and downloading. So we'll start with some background information on the Clean Heat Standard as part of the first part of the agenda. And then the second part of the agenda is to give you an update on the stakeholder process and the input that we've received to date. As many of you know that we've been doing stakeholder process so far on the Clean Heat Standard. Next, we'll provide an overview of our planned fuel supplier reporting requirements. This will be in the form of a proposed regulation. And then finally, we want to provide what we have heard from stakeholders on how the Clean Heat Standard should be designed and our next steps for that process. And then at the end, we'll provide time for your questions and comments. We expect the meeting to take an hour, but can stay longer if there are more questions. We have fewer people than this morning, so I do expect it will take no more than an hour. Next slide, please. MassDEP is developing a clean heat standard to address and reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the heating sector, often referred to as the thermal sector. And we're doing this because Massachusetts has aggressive goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from all sectors under our climate laws and clean energy and climate plans for 2025, 2030, and 2050. And these plans are known as the CECP as an acronym. So if you hear CECP, that's what it means. And then also last year, the Massachusetts Commission on Clean Heat endorsed the Clean Heat Standard as a tool to deliver clean heat to homes and businesses in Massachusetts. And this accompanied other measures and policies for the building sector. So I'm going to turn it over to Will Space.
Thanks, Christine. So just to drill down a little bit more into why we're working on a clean heat standard, the documents Christine mentioned, the climate plans, give us pretty clear marching orders, and they also give us some of the more detail related to the fact that the plans all require us to promote electrification because they show that we really need to electrify the vast majority of buildings by 2050, and that will cut down the greenhouse gas pollution, but also help with other air pollution problems. Very briefly, the Clean Heat Standard can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants. It supports delivering clean heat at the scale needed and the pace needed to get to our 2050 requirements under the plans. And we not getting into many details at all tonight, won't be talking about this much tonight, but our stakeholder discussion document also explains how we intend to build equity into the concept right from the beginning. Next slide. So we wanted to back up in this meeting and just really start from what a clean heat standard is. So starting with the kind of illustration on the right, the circles represent sort of the different types of clean heat that may be needed or count toward our reductions over time. Certainly various types of electric heat pumps and maybe other clean fuels still to determine. But the idea of the funnel diagram there is that we need to really have a regulation that counts things and imposes a requirement. We need a kind of common way of counting and accounting for the reduction. So the idea is that when these different kind of projects happen, there'd be an application process that kind of funnels all of them into this common idea of a clean heat credit. And then we can use that as the basis for the regulation. So the basic concept is that a clean heat standard is a regulation. So it requires action to happen, and it requires clean heat through the process of the clean heat crediting aspect of it. The regulation, the requirements would be imposed on suppliers of heating fuels, including heating oil, natural gas, and potentially in the longer term, electricity. As I said, the clean heat credits would be used for demonstrating progress, particularly through electrification, but also, the suppliers could either do the reductions themselves that get themselves to the credits, or they can purchase clean heat credits from other entities that are making progress. And in bold at the bottom of this, I want to emphasize that this is meant to get at sort of what, at the most basic level, is a clean heat standard, but it leaves a lot of questions unanswered, like exactly what counts as clean heat, exactly who will be regulated, and what the extent of the requirements will be. So we're working on all these things in the future, and we plan to work more on those programs in future aspects of the program in future stakeholder meetings. Next slide. So one of the main purpose of this meeting is to sort of get everybody up to speed on the process, what we've done so far, where we're going. And I want to make sure people are aware that we've already kind of begun the stakeholder process. Next slide, Emily. And we started with a detailed draft discussion document with some regulatory language attached. And we wouldn't necessarily normally start a stakeholder process with something kind of that dense and detailed, but we knew there were a lot of stakeholders that already had given this a lot of thought. And we wanted to build a written record of that input. So we had this initial written stakeholder feedback deadline. We received 57 written comments and counting. So we think we're really happy with that input. We've been focusing on our initial review of the comments, in particular on basically issues around how we run the stakeholder process and get the most important input we need. We noticed the comments emphasize needs for transparency, equity, environmental justice, and also just generally for more information. And we got even some more specific requests around easily digestible descriptions, opportunities for feedback such as this meeting, and also sessions on specific technical topics and other ideas for engagement. Next slide. Before this meeting, we also added significant amount of material to our stakeholder, our Clean Heat Standard webpage. We added a description of the Clean Heat Standard in the form of a short video by the same consulting group that wrote an appendix to our Clean Energy and Climate Plan, just to provide some additional background in addition to what I just provided. We have several white paper memoranda documents on different technical aspects of the Clean Heat Standard, one of them associated with the specific technologies and the cost and emissions associated with those technologies. a second on crediting schemes that address consumer level actions such as rooftop solar systems, and then finally, which entities might be obligated to comply with the standard. We also did something we haven't always done with the initial body of stakeholder input, which is posted our own summary of the comments, just so that if you're interested, you can read that summary, and it does call out who made which comment, so it might help as a guide to delving more deeply into the comments. Next slide. So our plans for stakeholder input in the future are to hold ongoing, additional versions of this stakeholder meeting. So virtual community meetings every 4 to 6 weeks with evening sessions. And we want to focus this on content that's geared toward a general audience and accept questions and comments in each of those meetings. Based on stakeholder input, we also had a specific request to have technical sessions on some specific aspects that were named by stakeholders, and we're working on scheduling those over the summer to accommodate that request. Finally, we're happy to meet, and we've already done some of this with interested groups on any aspect of the clean heat standard. And we're also happy to have you email ideas anytime, particularly on ideas for further stakeholder engagement. We are still just getting started with our stakeholder engagement and are looking for input on how to best handle that. Next slide. So I'm going to pause briefly on the first topic here. We will have time for more general questions and discussions later in the presentation, but if there's any brief clarification questions on what I've covered on stakeholder engagement so far, you can use that raise hand button if you'd like to speak, or you may want to add things to the chat, or Josh, if there's anything on that category that's already in the chat, you could let me know.
We had one question on where the summary document is posted.
So if you go to the Clean Heat Standard stakeholder page, there's a link on our last slide. I think it's with the file that includes all the comments in one big file, but it is on that page. If you have trouble finding it, looking there, you can email us and we can point you in the right direction. Emily, do I have that general description right?
Yeah, it's its own file, but I can put a link to it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Oh, Josh already did.
There you go.
All right, again, plenty of time for questions at the end, but if there's anything more on this particular topic, Josh, I don't know if there's another one.
No additional questions.
Great. Okay, thanks. Then going on to the next topic. So we focused our initial review of the stakeholder comments on things that we needed to sort of get the project moving. One of them was this focus on the comments that suggested things about the stakeholder process. So I just discovered that topic. The other thing is when we do a regulation, we need to first figure out how to get information from the regulated parties. So often reporting requirements come in advance of specific regulatory requirements. So we floated some detailed language around that earlier this year, and we're really moving forward on that. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to say a little bit of our plans. I do want to emphasize we need to go through a rulemaking process to make any of these requirements final, which we hope to do later this year. But this is just an update on where we're headed on that. So we already have a greenhouse gas reporting program that requires several hundred companies, including facilities, even some small businesses, and electric sellers to report greenhouse gas emissions. So we're looking at expanding that existing regulation to accommodate fuel supplier reporting to monitor the emissions from the heating fuels. We're looking at, and this is again the kind of thing we would get additional comment on, but quarterly reporting. We've gotten some comments on the burden of that, but it seems to be important in programs that have a compliance obligation. And we think we have good starting points for simplifying the compliance process because the reporting companies are already required in laws and regulations to keep track of their fuel sales based on billing records or delivery slips. And so we can just reference that and sort of tell the companies how to calculate their emissions from that data. And we're working on an online registration and reporting system that would be used to simplify the process for dealing with that requirement. Next slide. We've also already sent out flyers to a number of potentially regulated companies, and we're working, ongoing basis to try and identify and narrow down and solidify our list of regulated entities, including different databases, doing searches of the websites of the various companies, and also coordinate with another agency, the Division of Standards, that has a role to play with delivery slips that I mentioned earlier, and also inspections of the delivery metering aspects of the trucks. The natural gas part of it is less of an issue because those entities already report to the Department of Public Utilities. Next slide. So we're going to stop here again for clarification questions. Again, time for discussion at the end, but if there's anything that I've said that people have a quick question about at this point, I'm happy to pause for a minute and answer that. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Emily now for a couple of slides. She's been doing the work on looking really closely at trying to organize and think through all the comments that we received. So, Emily.
Sure, yeah. Just at a very high level, we can go to the next slide, Josh. So just pull out some of the themes from the comments. There's general agreement that the clean heat standard needs to be expressed and measured in terms of greenhouse gas reductions, as opposed to some of the other ideas that we've floated, such as square foot of conditioned space. There's a real emphasis and agreement that the program needs to be designed to achieve equitable outcomes, and that we need to build in compliance flexibility, such as an alternative compliance payment option, which is where a regulated entity would be allowed to basically pay a fee instead of procuring the credits themselves if they couldn't find them. Then in terms of the specific program design, there was a really broad array of opinions on technical topics, specifically which technology should count as clean heat. With the exception of electrification, there were people on both sides for pretty much every technology that was raised, and a lot of comments about specific technologies. There's also a lot of discussion about how credit values should be calculated, particularly with regards to how emissions associated with electricity generation should or should not be considered. And then, a broad array of specific comments on program design and implementation, such as the role of third-party verification and other details that we're working through. So I'll go to the next slide. So like Will mentioned, we've posted both the comments and a summary of them on our website so that people can see what everyone is thinking about this. And we'll be posting additional comments as they come in periodically. Like Will mentioned, they're still trickling in and we are still accepting comments. So please submit written comments at any time to our email address. We are very interested in your feedback. And I think I'll hand it back to Will for the next slide.
Great, thanks, Emily. So wanted to just lay out a few of the next steps that we're hoping to achieve in this year. One is to get the fuel supplier emissions reporting regulations in place this year to support the later implementation of the standard. The next is, based on our review of the comments and also our climate plan, there is, as Emily mentioned, a lot of different opinions about how the program should work, but there's clear direction to us to make sure we're crediting electrification. So we're thinking of sort of an early action kind of approach to electrification, where we get the crediting system for that aspect of it up and moving as quickly as we can this year. And finally, as I said, it's not on this slide. Next step I already mentioned is the more stakeholder engagement on technical sessions and more of these sessions over the next couple of months. And then we would think later this year, we would have some sort of a kind of a straw program framework that would lay out options or maybe even preferences or proposals for how to structure the program overall. And then that's probably the next time we'd actually have a kind of comment period with a specific deadline for comment. But as we've said a couple times, we're happy to receive written comment at any point along the way. I think one more slide, Josh. So I think that's the end of our prepared remarks. Here's different links for keeping in touch with our process. I think we're ready to move on to questions, and they can be posed in comments, and they can be posed either by raising a hand or by typing into the chat.
One thing I want to mention, it's Christine Kirby, is that we have been working closely with our environmental justice director at MassDEP to help with our engagement, and we bring her in throughout this process. So that goes along with our commitment for centering equity and environmental justice since we designed this program.
Thank you. Josh, do we have anything in the chat we should be addressing?
So far, no questions in the chat and nobody has raised their hands to comment. Oh, Laura, I can unmute you if you're having a challenge using that function. I've asked you to unmute.
Yeah, great, thanks. Should I start my video too? Is that doable, or just do vocal? That's fine.
Vocal is fine. We can do your video if you'd prefer.
No, that's okay.
Sure.
I'm sure you're not all lip readers. So hi, I don't know why I couldn't raise a hand, but my name is Laura Height. I am the U.S. Policy Director for the Partnership for Policy Integrity. It's based in Massachusetts, but we work internationally, and our focus is on biomass energy. And I see that you did get our comments and summarize them quite succinctly in the summary, which I appreciate, which was like, take wood out, don't count wood towards this clean heat standard. But I wanted to actually ask you a question because our comments were very, talking about the health impacts of burning wood. They're very brief. There are certainly greenhouse gas impacts as well as public health impacts from wood burning, but we have some real concerns about the appendix that was drafted by the Regulatory Assistance Project, which seemed to indicate either a lack of understanding on biomass energy or just a complete disagreement with our organization. And I've also critiqued some of their clean heat standard legislation that's been proposed in other states. And I heard you say that you have them doing something else for you. Could you tell me exactly what you have Regulatory Assistance Project doing for you?
Yeah, the only additional thing is already on the website. We asked them, in order to address stakeholder comments regarding just kind of explaining what actually the words clean heat standard mean, we asked them to record a short video, basically covering the same information, but in a more succinct form that's in that appendix that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So that is posted on our website now. And I'm glad you raised that because I think I might have forgot to mention that when I was running over what was on the website. But yeah, so you could take a look at that. But I should also say, no decisions have been made, and that those recommendations are very much what we're looking for stakeholder comment on. And I can also just, reference the fact that in our discussion document, we did explicitly ask the question of whether there are certain things that should be category excluded from crediting independently, and we're welcome. We're happy to receive comments on that topic.
Right, and that's how we addressed our comments. But I'd like to follow up. Maybe the best way is through a meeting and just really walk you through our specific concerns about the assumptions that were in that appendix. And of course, that was under the previous administration that we might have submitted comments on that whole plan, but that was one appendix out of many, many things. So I'm not even sure if we expressed our concerns about it prior to this occasion. So is the best approach for us to just send an email and request a meeting?
Yep, I think so.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I think we have a raised hand there, Josh.
Caitlin, I've asked you to unmute.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Christine and Will, for these sessions. This is Caitlin Pilslund from Conservation Law Foundation. I appreciate the sort of every 4 to 6 weeks concept of these. I think that will be more useful for folks than just having like a one-off briefing, essentially, when things come up. I certainly will just briefly reiterate our concerns about holding low and moderate income customers harmless, essentially, with any increases in energy costs from the program, which we generally believe will be necessary across the board, but we think for equity, the program really needs to be directing funds to help folks with their bills on the low and moderate end of the customer spectrum. And we continue to, our position continues to be that alternative fuels for gas should not be qualified as clean. But I was just wondering if you have a list of the potential technical sessions or the technical sessions that you intend to schedule, what those topics are.
Yeah, we're very focused on the list that you and some other stakeholders provided. So I think you'll see what your comments were reflected in that. I don't have a specific announcement on it, but that's where we're headed. And I just would also say, Caitlin, on the equitable impacts question, I think that's the technical sessions are one thing. I think that's one that we will likely focus early on in one of these virtual community meeting sessions. We didn't want to sort of do more than just provide an initial sort of orientation at this session, but we know that's something we need to speak to early on.
Great. We have 2 comments from chat and then 1 raised hand from Taufik Rahajo. Will the more technical sessions this summer be open to the general public? And is the program still on track to go live on January 1st, 2025?
The sessions would be open to the public, similar to this, a webinar that's recorded. Maybe not evening sessions for all of them, given the suggestion from the commenters that these would be sort of technical track kind of sessions. And I don't have anything to add to the timeline other than it was in the climate plan was as early as 2024. So that's still how we're thinking about it.
And then another question from Gail Magno-Hire. Some consumers who install electric heat also want to keep their oil or gas infrastructure for heating in the coldest weather, which can be more cost effective. The clean heat standard seems to focus on switching. How would this type of use be accounted for?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that the reason we need technical sessions, and it's going to take us time to get to a straw proposal. We we'll need to start. I think you're correct that in the climate plan, the focus is eventually a switch and not just a combination, but we are aware of the need to accommodate that and consider that as we design the program. So I don't know, I don't have an answer, but that's how we're looking at it.
Kyle Murray, I've asked you to unmute.
Hey there, Kyle Murray from Acadia Center. I just want a quick clarification, Will, about something I thought you said. Did you say you were going to have a technical session on the, sort of equity piece that Caitlin had brought up?
So I will confess that we looked at the commenters that you all submitted on technical sessions and are planning to hold them, but you may have better in your head what the list was than I do. But I think what I said about equity is that I think we think that's important enough that it will probably merit a whole one of these virtual community meetings in addition to whatever the technical session that treats it is. Does that help?
And just to note, this discussion document that was put out did have a number of concepts for how to build an equity. So that's really a starting point. And, you know, we are certainly intending to have a more robust conversation about it. And we are very much encouraging input on that topic.
I'm not seeing any additional. Oh, Kyle, I'll ask you to unmute again.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking, apart from, sort of these sessions and the technical sessions, what sort of outreach is the department, doing on this to make sure that members of the public are properly informed? For example, I got this through an email from DEP because I'm signed up on the list. But I know a lot of people, aren't obviously on that list. So are there going to be, you're working with maybe like some of the, regional entities to hold, to hold sessions to inform the general public, or just curious on that?
I think we're happy for suggestions on that. We do have a pretty broad stakeholder list that includes a number of member organizations that I know are reaching out to members. We've also reached out to the companies, the fuel companies that would be regulated under the program, but we're open to suggestions on additional outreach and meetings. We've certainly indicated, for example, to our EJ table and also to the, we've been in touch with the Energy Efficiency Advisory Council, equity group, somebody from that group. So we're trying to do the outreach we can. And as we've said, we're more than happy to have additional suggestions.
Great, thank you. And I was thinking, working with some of the, the regional planning entities, they obviously have great contacts in their communities and can get the voice out there a little wider. So thank you.
Great, thanks.
Isabella Gamble, A Better City, +1 to Kyle's question, and also wondering regarding language access and multilingual outreach.
So I think we're happy with input on that. I don't have a good answer on the language part at this time.
So let me just add, so MassDEP has been very active in making sure that we reach out to communities if they need language translation through our environmental justice policy and strategy. So, we do that for some things in writing. We translate notices and other things that some of it's on request. We've also had folks available to translate on meetings. So if there's a particular request on, things that need to be translated or multilingual meetings, then please let us know.
I should add that we are still working on the general request for sort of easily digestible kind of information on this, and we, to the extent we develop sort of more shorter, more concise materials, those are better candidates for translation. The materials, for example, the stakeholder discussion document seemed like they were maybe not the right candidate for that sort of treatment.
I'm not seeing any additional comments in the chat or any raised hands.
So I think we'll give it another minute or two and then we'll wrap up. If we don't have any more questions, then we can wrap up, but we'll just wait for a minute or two. Okay, I think we can wrap up. I want to thank everyone for attending. These stakeholder meetings are as important to us as it is for you, I am sure. Our intent is to keep doing stakeholder right on this. It's a very complex policy, but it's an important policy for us to meet our climate goals. So again, on the web, on the screen right here, there are a number of ways to get in touch with us. We have lots of materials on our webpage. A place to submit your comments, and we have a sign up for the Clean Heat Standard email list to Kyle's point. If you have folks that you think are interested in hearing about this, please have them sign up. We're trying to have as much outreach as we can, but we're relying on other folks to spread the word. So with that, I think we can close unless you have anything else you want to share, Will.
No, great, thank you.
And we will be back again at some point in the near future with our next meeting and stakeholder sessions on the technical issues. So thank you, everyone, and good night. Good evening.